Hello everyone and welcome back for some more Drag Race gossip, secrets and drama. So I'm back for another Roscoe's recap, and this viewing party was for season 17 episode 6, and the guests this week were Acacia Forgot and T.S. Madison. Today we're going to be talking about why Acacia said that the other queens on the season can, quote, go F themselves, some drama involving T.S. Madison being accused of making inappropriate comments, and some backstage tea about an apparent unaired production shutdown due to the fight between Lexi and Onya. All that and more coming up in today's video, so let's get started. But before we dive in, I'd like to say thank you to the sponsor of today's video, Factor. If you're like me and you want to try and eat healthier but you just don't have the time or the patience to cook meals from scratch, Factor is the perfect solution. Factor lets you take the stress out of healthy eating and meal planning, and also lets you skip the dreaded grocery shopping. Instead, you can get chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meals delivered right to your door. There are over 35 meals to choose from per week, which cater to many dietary requirements such as keto, vegan, high protein, and much more. The other great thing about Factor is that it's totally flexible. You can change your order every week with plans from 4 to 18 meals per week, and you can even pause or reschedule your deliveries anytime. The website is also super easy to use, everything is clearly marked with dietary preferences, and on top of that, I love that Factor offsets 100% of delivery emissions and sources 100% renewable electricity for their production sites and offices. Get 50% off and free shipping on your first Factor box using my link. Click the link in the description or scan the QR code with your phone. And thank you again to Factor for sponsoring this video. Okay, so they started off by saying that T.S. Madison was coming, but she was running a bit late because of her train, so she would join them later. Host Naysha Lopez said she wanted to rewind a bit to the first few episodes of the season. She then asked Acacia how she felt about, quote, Joella's honesty, and Acacia said, quote, is that what it is? And people gasped and laughed. Naysha then said, quote, Joella's, I'm trying to find another word. Acacia said that Joella is honest in the wrong way. Naysha continued that they all love a bit of drama and the feistiness that she brought when she was being honest about stuff, but they're not talking about her, quote, lies. The other host, Caramel, then said that it's a mix of honesty and delusion, which Naysha agreed with, and she asked Acacia how she received that when they were having the conversations in the workroom. Acacia said that in the moment, she thought that Joella had her back and was being nice, but then later when Acacia was back in the hotel room, she realised that Joella was actually not being nice and that it was, quote, a rotten thing to say, but in the moment it just went over Acacia's head. Naysha then brought up that when Joella was at Roscoe's a few weeks ago, Naysha had asked which challenges she was most excited and not excited for. And Joella had said, quote, I wish I got a Rusical, so they all realised that Joella clearly did not last until the Rusical. Naysha said that when Joella said that, they all clocked it, and even the people in the audience clocked it as well, and that you could see on their faces that they realised when Joella said that. They then moved on, and the other host, Batty Davis, brought up the lip sync from episode 2, which was Acacia versus Hormona. And during the lip sync, Acacia had pulled a makeup brush out of her butt during the lip sync, and Batty wanted to know how long the brush had been up there. Acacia joked that it had been in there long enough to, quote, be cooked all the way through, and everyone laughed. Naysha later revealed that Acacia had actually told her a secret about this during the commercial break, and Acacia had actually glued the brush in place, so it was there all the way through untucked, the critiques and everything, which is about 4 to 5 hours. Acacia shared that she didn't want anyone to know that the brush was there, and Crystal Envy kept wanting to peek at Acacia's butt, so she kept trying to look at the back of Acacia's outfit to help her fix the outfit at the back, but Acacia kept batting her away because she wanted to keep the brush a surprise until the lip sync. Acacia also confirmed that she had always planned to do that gimmick for the lip sync, even before she came to Drag Race. Caramel then brought up episodes 1 and 2 and asked if the queens were being honest about their feelings about Acacia's talent show number, or did they say something different to her face and then say something else in the confessionals behind Acacia's back. Acacia said they definitely were talking crap about her behind her back because in the moment they all said to Acacia that she had nothing to worry about because she was so fierce and because, quote, you were one of the only people to bring a talent. But then they all said something different behind her backs and said that she should be in the bottom. Acacia then said that she should have done a split at the end of her talent show number, and she would have then been in the top because, quote, all it takes to have talent is to do a split to a club beat because that's what everyone did besides Susie, and everyone gasped a bit. Batty agreed and mentioned that they had previously said at Roscoe's that having an actual raw talent is different to just lip-syncing to a pre-recorded song, even if it's an original song. Acacia added, quote, exactly, we're going to see them lip-sync to a track when they're in the bottom anyway, so this is a good time to show something that we're not going to see otherwise. The hosts all laughed, and Batty and Naysha said that Acacia was so shady and they loved it. They then watched the moment from this week's episode when Lexi realised someone had spray painted on her outfit, and eventually Arietti admitted that she had done part of it by accident because she thought Lexi's outfit was a tarp. Later, Lexi asked who the other person was who spray painted because there were two colours on her outfit, and Onya didn't say anything at first, but later said that it was her and it was an accident. Lexi then confronted Onya about it, asking why she didn't admit to it earlier, and they had a huge shouting argument about it. Batty said it was one of the, quote, craziest meltdowns that they've ever seen on the show, and Naysha asked Acacia what the energy was like in the room when that happened. Acacia shared that she was sitting in the workroom and Onya came back from spray painting and came to Acacia and said, quote, girl, bleep is about to go down. Acacia asked what Onya meant and Onya said that she had, quote, effed up and explained what had happened. Acacia then said they needed to get a camera over there and tell them what happened, but Onya said no and told Acacia not to bring it up because she wanted it to blow over. And at the time, Acacia didn't fully realise how bad it was and how big Lexi was going to blow up, but she should have known. And so when Lexi came in and asked who did it, Acacia wanted to point to Onya and say, quote, she did it. But she was trying to be too sisterly and, quote, too kumbaya, and she just didn't say anything. Naysha said she imagines that the arguing that we saw probably went on longer than what was shown, and she asked if that was the case. Acacia said it was intense and, quote, they had to put us in our own corners and be like, stop working, we need to deal with this. Acacia then said that the second it happened and they left the room, the queens were all like, quote, we're going to get the Emmy, and everyone laughed and cheered. Also, I saw some extra tea that happened outside of Roscoe's about this incident. One of my Twitter followers tagged me in a post from another Twitter user, which was a TikTok video which seemed to be of Jules Sparkles at a viewing party and Susie Toot was there too out of drag. Jules was talking about this incident with Onya and Lexi and said that it went on for a lot longer than what was shown. And Jules seemed to suggest that there was some kind of production shutdown as a result of the fight, and it meant that they all had to stop working on their outfits for 3 hours, and production had to step in to mediate.
What we saw was a very humble edit. The girls did get fierce. It got so fierce that we had to stop working on our outfits for like 3 hours.
Oh my god.
We had to stop working on our outfits for about 3 hours so that we could like mediate. Not us mediate, but like the producers could mediate and like...
And I just thought that this was some interesting backstage tea, and it does seem to align with what Acacia said about the queens being sent to different corners and they were told to stop working while they were dealing with this, even though a lot of it got cut out from the episode. And in the comments on this TikTok video and on Twitter, people were questioning why they cut all of this out from the episode, and people in the comments were also hypothesizing that if production had to shut things down and mediate the situation, it's likely that production also orchestrated Lexi's apology to Onya the next day because it seemed too convenient and rushed. Now, this is just pure speculation, however I thought this was an interesting theory, so let me know your thoughts about this in the comments. Also, some extra tea that I saw about this came from Amanda on the Pressed Conference podcast about some tea that Lexi spilled about this. So, Lexi was at a viewing party at a bar called Tribe Nashville, and Amanda said that Lexi shared some tea about how the tarps were set up for the spray paint.
She said production had set up about 20 large pieces of clear plastic so the queens could spray paint, and that would be basically their tarp. I went back, I watched the footage, I was like, where on the ground is this plastic we're speaking of? And I couldn't find it. And then it hit me. In All Stars 9, when they were doing spray paint, then they were doing spray painting on the walls. So when I look back at the clip on the walls, that's where all the plastic is. And that's where I guess they were wanting them to paint, which adds another like piece to the puzzle because there was protection, but I wonder if production let them know.
And I thought this was very interesting backstage tea, and I'll link to the full episode of the press conference in the description of this video, and you should go and check it out because it was some interesting tea. Okay, so back to Roscoe's, and Caramel said that she can understand why Lexi was angry because Onya did not take responsibility for it straight away, unlike Ariete. But Caramel said in all fairness, Lexi's outfit did look like a tarp on the ground. Cara had a question but said she'd ask this to Naysha instead because Acacia is still on the season, so presumably she didn't want to get Acacia into trouble. But Cara asked Naysha if she thinks that production saw the tarp and realised what happened. Naysha said she thinks production was, quote, very aware of it because they watched Lexi take the tarp and lay it down. But Naysha said that the reality is that Onya did not own up to it, and every time Lexi asked who did it, Onya just looked down, and Naysha thinks that's what made it worse. Naysha then said that if it were her and she was upset and she was expressing herself, if someone apologised, that would go a long way. Whereas in Naysha's opinion, it, quote, became argumentative and combative as opposed to just saying, I'm sorry, I messed up. Acacia then said it was the same thing with the so-called trim gate, which was during the first design challenge, when Onya took the trim that Jules had said she needed for her outfit, and apparently she told Onya she couldn't have it, but Onya took it anyway. Acacia said, quote, she just was defending it instead of being like, girl, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that. Naysha said she loved that moment because she, quote, gaslit her so fierce, and it was so good, but it was also, quote, effed up. Acacia said she lived for that moment and she, quote, made the right decision saying what she said, I'm just saying. Batty then referred to the Lexi versus Onya drama from this episode and said, in her opinion, she doesn't think that there would have been another time to have this conversation other than in the heat of the moment, and she's not going to sit on it and come back after lunch and talk about it. Batty asked how many people were spray painting at that time, and Acacia said it was maybe only 3 to 4 people, so it was very obvious who was spray painting, and she's surprised it took Lexi that long to figure out who it was. Then, a bit later, T.S. Madison arrived and everyone cheered for T.S. Naysha asked how T.S. was, and she said she was good, but T.S. then said, quote, now, I want to say this before we even get started, there's a couple of folks who had a problem with me reading a B online. We can go out the exit and we can talk about it. Now, I think what TS is talking about is that about a week ago, TS made some comments about someone online, and TS was later called out, with people saying that her comments were inappropriate and xenophobic. I found some screenshots of this on the RPDR drama subreddit, and I'm not entirely sure how it started, but judging from what people were saying in the comments, it sounds like potentially someone online had insulted TS in some way about the way she looked. TS then posted screenshots of this person's profile photos, and the face of the person has been blurred in these screenshots, but apparently the person is of Latino background. TS posted the photos of this person who had reportedly insulted her and said, how you got time to be under my post when you need to be hiding under your bed? There was also a comment which said, it's like falling or something, which I think was the original comment made by the person which TS was calling out. And TS replied to this person and said, like ice falling at your front door today, Pablo. For those of you who don't know, ICE stands for the US Immigration and Customs Enforcement, which are the people who are responsible for deporting unlawful immigrants. So people were then criticising TS for making a deportation joke about this person just because they are of Latino heritage, and they said that TS was insinuating that they must be in the country illegally. Also, the person's name apparently was not Pablo, so people were assuming that TS was just using that name because it's a stereotypically Latino name. TS then got a huge amount of backlash for this comment about ICE and deportation, with people calling her racist or xenophobic. And the comments on TS's Instagram post have now been limited. People online then started bringing up past clips of TS talking about Latinos, and in one clip, TS and her co-host said, "If you go to the US, you need to learn English." There was also another clip that was brought up where TS's co-host said that a lot of Asian men have small penises, which he referred to as, quote, kiddie D's. And so people were saying that TS and her co-host have made a lot of racist or xenophobic comments in the past, and in combination with this recent comment TS made about ICE, people were disappointed in TS and were calling her out. And so this is what I assume TS was referring to at Roscoe's. But going back to Roscoe's, Naysha asked TS if, as a judge, she forms favourites. TS said she loves charisma, uniqueness, nerve, and talent, and she really loved Joella because she was such good TV and, quote, when a girl walks in complete delusion, you must give them their tens. And she said she would have given Joella Miss Congeniality just because. And Acacia said she's good friends with Joella, and she's like that all the time, not just for the cameras. They then watched the runways for this week, and TS was saying that some of the looks were lacking, and that this is a competition for $200,000. She then turned to Acacia and said, quote, now your outfit. And people started laughing because TS was clearly reading Acacia for her Sea Creatures runway. And Acacia laughed and asked for another drink, and TS asked her to talk about her outfit. Acacia explained that she had reached out to a very praised designer for this runway, and he sent the sketches, and it was, quote, the most gorgeous thing I've ever seen in my life. But then when he sent the photos of the outfit, it was, quote, the most hideous thing. And so in the hotel room the night before, Acacia was trying to cut up the outfit to try and make something of it, because previously it actually looked worse than how it did on the runway. And Acacia said she was trying to salvage what she had and something that she had paid thousands of dollars for. They then watched the judges' critiques, and they all said that they did not agree with the tops and bottoms. TS said that she did not like Sam's self-made outfit and said, quote, those bags is a fool, and she asked if the audience liked it and they said no. Acacia said that the judges read her look because they said it looked like she glued a bunch of crap to a corset, which is true. However, she covered the laces in the back and covered the front so that you couldn't see that it was a corset. But Acacia said Sam looked like she glued crap to a corset, as did Corey, Lydia and Susie, and you could see that it was a corset. So Acacia thought that it was BS that they gave Acacia that critique but didn't say that to the others. Acacia then said that Crystal was in the top, and she referred to Crystal's self-made outfit and said that Crystal found one big piece of fabric and made her outfit out of it, whereas all the other queens had used unconventional materials. Then Acacia said, quote, if I had a big piece of fabric, maybe I would have done something different. Batty then mentioned Lexi's self-made outfit and said that it also was a big piece of fabric and she was safe. Acacia then said, quote, that's a lot of drama for both Lexi and Onya's looks. She then said that Lexi's top was still blue and questioned what Lexi had spray painted, and they all spent 8 hours working on these looks and, quote, all she had was a tarp wrapped around her, I'm confused. TS said that when she judges, she likes to ask questions, even though one time she was tapped on the shoulder and was told, quote, Ru asks all the questions. And so TS then said okay and turned to Ru and said, quote, Ru, please ask her this. TS explained that she would have asked Acacia what happened in the workroom because she would have been able to see on Acacia's face that something had happened. And if Acacia had said that someone else had just used a piece of fabric, whereas everyone else used unconventional materials, TS would have docked points from the queen who used just fabric because that's not what the brief was. And TS said that she often asks the queens things like that, but a lot of it gets cut out. They then watched Untucked, and afterwards, Acacia said she had something she wanted to say, and everyone laughed. Acacia said that last week she was called one of the Kumbaya queens because she's, quote, too sensitive and cannot take critique, reads, or jokes. Yet, who are the ones crying because they're not in the top, because they're not loved, and because someone was praised last week? It's not Acacia, it's not Susie, Lydia, or Hormona, it's the queens who claim to be the non-Kumbaya girls who are now being sensitive. Acacia then said, quote, F all of them because that's effing bull bleep. Acacia continued and said, quote, I was voted the bottom place for the talent show when I was one of the only ones with a talent. I was told I was ugly every single day of filming by Ariete. I was read every single day by Joella, and I took it and laughed it off like a non-Kumbaya queen. And the second these girls are safe, they're crying about it, and I'm a Kumbaya girl. F all of them, I'm peed. And everyone clapped and cheered for Acacia. Batty then joked that she assumes that Acacia is not friends with any of the girls after the show. Acacia said, quote, Ariete is my best friend, and I would say it to her face, but everyone else? I don't know. And some people gasped when Acacia said that. They then watched more of Untucked, and TS asked why Susie was asking Acacia all of those questions about her outfit, when Susie was the one who should have been in the bottom because her outfit was bad. Acacia said about Susie, quote, she thinks she invented fashion, she thinks she invented makeup, and she thinks she has the room to call us out. Acacia then said, quote, she's getting very arrogant for me, I gotta say. The host asked whether Acacia meant Susie was arrogant as of this moment or then, and Acacia said she meant in that moment on the show. And Acacia added, quote, she's getting so arrogant, she's very full of herself, she thinks, the judges love me, so that means everyone should love me. TS then said, quote, oh, so she's giving Plain Jane. And Acacia said, quote, except Plain Jane was good at drag, and everyone gasped and laughed. They moved on, and Cara asked how they felt about the new main stage on Drag Race. And TS said that when she saw it, she thought that they're probably not doing any more live finales because they used to film the finales at places like the Orpheum Theatre, but they got tired of people in the audience going live and presumably spoiling what happened at the finale. And so it sounds like TS is implying that perhaps they're no longer doing live finales. Also, later on, Naisha said something about YouTube, and it looked like TS was not aware that this viewing party was being taped, and everyone laughed when TS said that she realised, although it's not clear if this was just a joke or not. And finally, they moved on to the Q&A, and Naisha said she tried to ask this question to Carson Kressley last week, and she's going to ask TS as well. But has TS ever disagreed with an elimination? TS immediately said, quote, all the time, and Naisha was a bit gagged and said that last week they had to ask Carson multiple times, but he never answered, and they said that he was, quote, scared to answer. And TS said, quote, well, listen, I've got a million jobs. And everyone screamed and laughed when TS said that, because it seemed like she was jokingly shading Carson and presumably implying that he only has one job, and Batty said, quote, she ate him up. TS then explained that on the first season she judged, when Lala Ree got eliminated, TS went back to her trailer and cried because she felt like she had assisted in someone going home and she didn't want Lala to go home. And apparently Rue said to TS, quote, toughen up, B. This is a competition. You think you wouldn't be up there, honey, for $200,000. It's time for them to go home. So there you go. There was the Roscoe's recap for Season 17, Episode 6. Did you agree with the tops and bottoms this week? And do you think that production orchestrated the apology between Lexi, Onya and Ariete? Let me know in the comments. If you'd like to get exclusive benefits such as early access to my videos and having your comment featured in my Have Your Say videos as well as many other benefits, please consider signing up to my Patreon. It just costs a few dollars a month, it really supports my channel and is such a huge lifeline to me and my channel, so please consider and I'll put a link in the description. And I would just like to say thank you so much to my Patreon members. Your support is truly incredible. I am so humbled and so appreciative of all of your support. I really love seeing you have your say comments. I really love this community that I've built on Patreon. So thank you all so much for supporting me. It really does mean more than you know. If you liked this video, please make sure you like and comment on the video because it really helps boost the algorithm and tell YouTube to promote this to other people. And please make sure you subscribe because it really makes a huge difference to my channel. So hit that subscribe button now. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you'll join me again for some future videos. Thank you, bye!